So this is where we're coming from. It's not intended to tell you what to do. It's to develop options. So having said that, I wish to turn this discussions over, begin it with Deputy Fred Nishihira to kind of go over some of the information that we're aware of at the AG's office, and then to ask for your assistance on developing some options. We have some ideas that we can throw on the table here, but it's really an open discussion with everybody here. It's not supposed to be formal, it's an informal discussion. So Fred?
Thank you very much, H. Moylan. So I have a long history with the Department of Education. I actually started my career there. So many of you know me for years and ages through these systems. I wanted to make sure I started by saying we've been here before, and together we can work things out so we can get kids into classrooms, right? I'm going to go just very briefly to some history about the adequate public education system. But I thought we'd start by saying, you know what? This is a joint responsibility. It's not a DOE. It's not a legislature. It is a joint responsibility for the government of Guam. And in fact, that responsibility comes to us from the Organic Act of Guam. As you heard AG Moylan say, you know, the government of Guam is required to provide an adequate public education. The Guam legislature defined it by 14 points. I believe it's in your packet. Every one of us knows what that is about. Here's the interesting thing that most people don't know about. Within the definitions of Guam, you can find it in 5 GCA Chapter 3, right? It is the mission of the Department of Education. This provision comes right after the Department of Public Works. And it says, it is the mission of the Department of Education and the duty of all public officials of the executive branch of the government of Guam to provide an adequate public education as defined in the Organic Act. Let me repeat that again. You see it in gold. All public officials of the executive branch. So if you're out there wondering why is the AG sort of out of lane and being involved with this, it's because the statutes of Guam require that the entire executive branch work together to provide our students with an adequate education. The adequate education basically was designed with 3 things in mind, right? As I just read, it was designed to provide government-wide responsibility. It was put there to define exactly what an adequate education may mean. And finally, it was to provide litigation if the government of Guam failed to provide an adequate education. So that's the second reason why the AG's office is involved with a meeting like this. It's to prevent litigation. When we talk about litigation, we're also talking about costs that's involved. The Adequate Education Act provides for attorney's fees to be recovered. And I see at least one other outside attorney who might take notes of that, but the point is that it's very costly. I watched today while Department of Education had their oversight with Senator Barnett, and it's also in your packet. And I don't need to repeat it. There's problems with the schools, some more, some less. We're not here to hash those out. And in fact, like I said, when we started from before, we are really here to say, how can we all work together to get the kids in the classroom, the kids into school, students into schools. And so, you know, we didn't just come here and say, hey, you know what, we want to listen to the problems and get involved in solving it, right? What we want to do is work together with agencies, in part hearing the issues that DOE brought up today with the senators and their issues they brought up today. So we come here and we're saying we are ready to dedicate staff time to work on memorandums of understandings, whether it's between agencies. We are willing to work with the legislature, drafting legislation. We are willing to work toward expediting procurement, and if necessary, to negotiate agreements as requested. So that's what we stand here. I can say this, AG Moylan, even before the storm hit Marwar, have dedicated some of my time as an attorney general to work specifically with the Department of Education. More specifically, he had assigned me there to help with their CIP projects. So this isn't just because of the pending problems that we have right now. That was a decision by AG Willen to dedicate time, knowing the importance of the Adequate Education Act. And so that was it for me. I'm going to turn it back to AG Willen to lead the discussion of points that he may want to report.
Thank you, Fred. So we have a brochure or whatever, a flyer in that packet. And I asked Fred to distill it for us on what the projected start dates were going to be of the 39 schools. He's indicated, as DOE has given the direction, that phase one, about 36% of the schools are going to be able to open. And we're talking about of the 39 by August 9 and no more than 2 weeks. So you've got a window of 36% of basically 36% of the students, that's how I kind of look at it, are going to be able to start within 2 weeks of August 9. And these are just, I understand these are kind of moving timeframes and dates. Phase two is 3 weeks to 2 months, and that's 33% of the 39 schools. And phase three is 3 months or more, and that's 31%. So the students are facing the possibility that this school year is going to run right into the summer of next year. And with the meteorological kind of predictions, if there's any of these typhoons that shut down the schools and then cause the public to use those schools again, and who knows what type of damage, we could literally not have the ability to graduate students, depending upon what's happening. The Brain Trust at the AG's office has come up with certain ideas for the community to be discussing, the people at these tables right now. It includes items like the school voucher program, the GCC and UOG, and I know some of this was discussed at the public hearing. And those are internal GCC and UOG. The senators, and with Senator Barnett and the speaker here, they control the agenda for those school facilities. The leasing of private school facilities and spaces, obviously that would be at the discretion of the private schools and how they wish to participate or not participate. We understand that San Vicente might be available. If you look at that flyer that Fred had prepared, the projected start date, you see exactly at the end of it, like elementary school for ES, and then actually the high schools and so forth. So this idea that the government of Guam might have available to it the option of leasing contracts for enrollment, depending, and this is all going to be driven by logistics coming out of the superintendent and our chairwoman at DOE. Obviously, they would give the strong recommendation on where they wish to go with this. We know DOE has used morning and afternoon sessions. We understand that that might be available to the private schools, depending upon if they wish to participate. We're going to be also discussing the Dodea option, where Congressman Jim Moylan might be able to assist us with some contacts over there. The funding options, obviously this is an expensive proposition, DOE in general. The school voucher options could be DOE funds, would have to be DOE funds. There may be a FEMA option because of what happened in the typhoon, that they might be able to assist with providing some of the funding required. The American Rescue Plan funding, there's probably a way that, given the broad scope of the American Rescue Plan, that could be provided. You know, these are the type of things that we're trying to come up with. Obviously, we could be the point person for any legal matters, any contracts, any procurements that would have to, or bills that the senators may request for drafting. I would note that the legislature has complete authority to decide what type of procurement occurs on Guam. You do not have to follow the procurement law if the legislature decides that they wish this to be fast-tracked. And it's been done in several instances in the past. Having said that, I would like to open it to the speaker maybe and let her address some of these issues and her perspective, as well as our chairperson of the Department of Education.
Well, property, everyone. I'm glad to be here, and I'm glad that we're all trying to get on the same page to address, and I appreciate the community's support as well for the public schools and our students. We went through a long hearing this morning, and we've been through several of these in the last few days or weeks, and updates as to all the work that they've been doing to prepare the schools. We are optimistic that if we can ensure inspections of those 36% of the schools that are in phase one, that will be great. I think we need to ensure that the government of Guam on its side is shored up as far as inspectors, right? That we have enough and that they can do that work efficiently and quickly, and so that the schools can get the answers that they need like almost immediately. And that the other one, we heard some word today also that these other schools are flexible. Like if we can address a couple of the problems, some of these in phase two might actually move to phase one very quickly as well. And so I like to prioritize those. I've been trying to think of every option available, and I agree with the leasing option that if there's any facilities available for those in phase three, that we find those and that we use government resources to procure those as fast as possible. And we have, I think there's even a hearing this afternoon, and there's a bill that was passed, but I think vetoed regarding procurement and how to shortcut the procurement for DOE in particular. We don't like to do that, right? We want fair, open competition. We still want that. However, the timelines are so short. So we are trying to find every way to shorten those procurement timelines. So again, thank you for all your work.
I love being put on the spot. So a couple things come to mind as we start to think about what it takes to help the Guam Department of Education move forward. So looking at this list, the first thing that came to me a couple nights ago was, what do we do with GW? One, it's right next to my campus, and two, it's the only public high school that is not slated to be open. And I'll say that the Guam Community College used to be the vocational high school for the territory. So working out with George Washington, and we've done a lot of work with them already, but working with them to find out between myself and the incoming president, Dr. Enriquez, maybe we can have some conversation with GW to see how we can utilize some of our facilities and the University of Guam as indicated to get them at least launched or started. In terms of providing the shop classes, I have shop classes with the exception of culinary because it's coming down. But the only shop that we probably wouldn't be able to accommodate would be the culinary arts or the post-art program, but we might be able to figure out some other way. So George Washington was one that came to mind immediately. In terms of the elementary schools and the middle schools, I think one opportunity that we can take a look at is take a look at the rules and the regulations whereby public health is using to review the schools to begin with. How can we identify and streamline those components so that it allows us to open up and then maybe come back later and address those little eaches? Because we heard today that a lot of the demerits are coming from little things like a marker drawn through a table or a toilet tissue that's there but not hanging on the rack. I mean, little things like that. So maybe we can help mitigate that checklist a little bit, fine tune it so that we can meet the requirements and not have as many demerits. That to me sounds like maybe an easy way to address what that checklist looks like. Because to me, it sounds like the checklist is very tedious, and once you get through, and we heard it today, once you get through a certain number of demerits, they're not even going to go back and take a look again. And then another thing, as mentioned earlier, was trying to identify other individuals in the government of Guam or with the National Guard to help and maybe train in a short time people that can serve as inspectors. We've done different kinds of training in that regard. So maybe we can there's a word for it. Maybe we can deputize, I guess, somebody to be a trained inspector for public health for the purpose of getting us through the finish line. And although I agree that maybe we should stop once you get to a certain demerit, it's always helpful to know what does the whole thing look like. So cutting it off halfway or a quarter of the way probably doesn't help to support what it is that is needed. Then as I was driving down here, I thought about accreditation and I thought about audits. There's always a way to submit a plan for compliance. In other words, we don't shut you off completely, but there's always a way to mitigate and put a plan together to help solve the issue as identified. And so like in accreditation, they identify an area of underperformance and they provide you an opportunity to respond to that and what mitigation you're going to do to get on par with the standards. That's one. Audits, the same thing. Sorry, you can't do that. Slap your hand a little bit. It's not allowed, but what processes are you going to put in place to help ensure that it doesn't happen again? So maybe it shouldn't just be a complete cutoff. It should be an action plan to help us get to where we need to be. I think about conditional occupancy, like I have requested for in one of the facilities we just built. So conditional occupancy could be, we're not using all of the classrooms and all of the spaces, and as indicated today in the hearing with DOE this morning, there might be several classes or wings that are usable. And maybe that's a way to get conditional occupancy until we're able to fully utilize the entire space. And so those are just some ideas that that we can work together on. But I think in terms of how the college can help specifically, I think we need to take a look at GW and how many classes and spaces they need, taking into consideration what they currently have. So that one is right at my front door. And then working through the other examples I gave to offer some relief. But in any case, every school that is not on tier 1 should have a backup school that people are already planning for. People should know, if this school's not open, here's your backbone. I mean, so that we can, because you've got people working to help in, I'll get a Johnston, for example, to help them get up to par. But if they're helping with 2 areas or 2 schools that they know, if this one doesn't pass, we're going to go here, you might get more hands for folks that are able to provide some support. That's just my thought.
Thank you, Madam Chairwoman. Chairperson, Senator Burnett.
Yes. Thank you, AG. Thank you, Madam Chair and Madam Speaker. First, I want to thank you for calling for this roundtable forum. I've always been of the opinion that the more minds, the merrier. And I'm encouraged by your eagerness to assist us in helping find solutions. I did kind of want to go over, well, just my thought right away. I know that we're conducting this meeting because you're of the belief that online learning is in violation of the Adequate Public Education Act. And I would also just offer that I feel like we're already in violation of the Adequate Education Act, and that the Public Law 37-4 is an attempt to come into compliance with a lot of these gaps that we're seeing. And I'm aware of at least a couple of claims that have been filed with GDOE that, if not addressed, and these are claims relative to the Adequate Public Education Act, if not addressed, could very well end up inside of a courtroom. And that's a situation that I know we're all here to avoid. And so just to maybe clarify some of the concerns about online learning. I don't support online learning. I agree with every teacher and administrator and their thoughts on online learning, which is it's not a realistic or a viable option, when compared to face-to-face. But that being said, in the hearing this morning, one of the things we were able to clear up was that the use of online learning, in the event that we do have to utilize that option, would not be for the duration of the school year, but would really be a short-term, I don't want to use the word solution, but a short-term change in mode of learning to kind of accommodate the lack of facilities that GDOE has at their disposal to use. And I think when we look at even these the phase listing here, AG, even this list is really subject to change within, I would even say, within the next 2 weeks, as close as we are to the opening of the schools, right? There are a lot of things in phase 2 schools that can be addressed that would easily make them move them to the phase 1 category. And I think that's kind of where we're going, but without the inspection and the ability to open these campuses. I know that GDOE is continuing to do the work. And so, yeah, I just want to offer that online learning and I think maybe in some of the town halls of the Guam Department of Education and Health, just kind of like that 0 to we're going to go full online really caused a lot of anxiety and frustration. So that's why I was very grateful that we were able to kind of flesh out exactly what type of online learning and what the duration of this online learning would be. Because, you know, let's be honest, most people when they hear the term online learning, we just muscle memory back to the COVID-19 pandemic, and which we were dealing with so many different situations relative to our isolation as a people and as a community, and going from that isolation and these lockdowns to a mode of learning that really kept the students from the social interaction that is, and we all know this is a very key component to a great public education. And so I think for a lot of people, and you know, outside of the inconveniences of what it's going to take to execute online learning, I think that maybe in their mind when they hear those words, they kind of go back to COVID. And I just want to say that and the testimony on the record in the hearing today will show that this is something. For example, if you have phase 3 school that's 3 months out from being able to open on August 9th, that doesn't necessarily mean that students who go to that campus would have to go online. What it does mean, though, is that if we get more schools open, students in a phase 3 school could end up double sessioning face-to-face at a phase 1 school. And so, yeah, there are a lot of moving parts and things that I think are going to change very rapidly before the opening of the schools, which is why I got to appreciate this effort, especially to enlist private schools and even some of the charters. And I did hear something, I don't know if GDOE can confirm this, but that they may have looked at some properties that they felt may have been available to use for exactly the situation we're talking about. But I didn't hear too much about it, so I would just defer to the Department of Education on that. But yeah, just so we're kind of clear, right? There are so many moving pieces, and I don't think when we look at a list of phase 2 or phase 3 schools that list is going to be fixed for the long term. I think that everybody, you know, all the public officials in the Guam legislature and all the public officials in the Guam Department of Education are working very hard, as well as the Attorney General's office, to bring us to that point where we can open a safe and sanitary school. So I definitely appreciate the support of this roundtable, and yeah, I'm open to discussing these ideas. I think they could be a viable way that we can add to the existing pool of facilities that the Guam Department of Education has at their disposal to conduct face-to-face learning as much as possible.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Just to interject, and I wish to go to the private schools and have them kind of reflect on the situation that we're facing from a government point of view. Our office has begun the research about the law that we were referring to, the Adequate Education Act law. It's our position that online learning is inadequate. The whole statute was put together, obviously, if you've heard the sponsor, former Senator Klitzky, before they even had the concept of online learning. And I believe that was back in 2005 that the statute was passed. But the statute makes constant references to an actual classroom. They do not envision or conceive that using an iPad or a laptop outside the presence of a disciplined environment where the kids are with the certified teacher, that was a language that's also used in the statute, was to be used. The pandemic was an emergency situation worldwide that forced everybody either to do online learning or you don't get an education based upon all our health statutes out there. An emergency. This is not an emergency. This is a self-inflicted wound of the government of Guam. We have been unable to, unlike the private schools, have the service of education given to our public school students. And because of the amorphousness that we're seeing from the AG's office on it could open, it might open, it depends upon public health, how many inspectors they have. And I have a question about that too. You just don't bring in inspectors from the National Guard and expect that they're going to be doing what a public health employee has been trained to do, qualified to do, and things like that. So again, this is not to blame anyone, but to say that we're facing an uncertainty that the government should have more options. Me as an attorney general should be able to provide my client, which is everybody on the government side of this table, some options. That's why I'm saying, think about the school voucher program. You know, it may not even be from the government of Guam funds, it could be from federal funds. We have the congressman out there, we've got the FEMA, the ARP money as well, just to get over these humps that we're at. Obviously, DOE is going to control the situation because they're going to tell us how many numbers and how long and what years to shift from. You know, this month the kids are going to be, or this quarter the kids will be at this school, and maybe that should be the gauge. Keep them in how would you say, a controlled environment that's constant. Even though the school might get ready ahead of time, you can't just take kids there and ship them. I can just see DPW with their bus system, everybody getting all confused about who to pick up and so forth. In the AG's office, we talked about the school voucher, that if there's a certain number that was authorized, it would be by lottery, and then the parents would have to drop their kids off at these schools. But basically, it would be for the government to present a certain amount of money that our charter schools, I think they've already set the figure on what would be the amount, and make it available to the private schools so that they would take the student for that period of time for the curriculum that they would be offering, and they would get the credit at the end. To me, it's the credit. You need to graduate, and I'm speaking to the choir on the side of the table, you need a certain amount of credits to graduate to the next level. So having said that, that's where we're coming from. If we're sued as a government, we believe that we have a low probability of winning, that online education works and we'll be able to sustain judicial scrutiny if it went before the courts, based upon the way that the statute's worded. Also, I was asking Fred, what was the SAT and PSAT scores before the pandemic, and what were the scores after the pandemic? Is there something appreciable to see how the children suffered? And this is all about the kids. Now, again, I'm speaking to the choir, we're all here about the kids and the parents. Remember, when you do online education, you're also going to be affecting the lower income parents who are actually trying to maintain a job in a environment where they could get fired for not showing up for work because they got to make the choice. Do I stay home and watch my kid or get CPS down my throat? Or do I go to work and leave my kid at home, or not let him go to school and come with me to work? These are the type of problems that we're facing as a community. I know you know that. So having said that, may I turn it over to Superintendent of Catholic School Education, Reverend Nicholas.
Thank you. Thank you for the opportunity to be here. I think I can just speak on maybe two portions. It seems like we have an immediate need and maybe a longer term need. I'm not sure in terms of charter schools and vouchers, but the Catholic school system, we're open to help in whatever we can. But it's really dependent on from school to school, on their availability of classrooms, and even how their schools are designed, and how can they rent one classroom. And I would have to talk to each principal. It's a case-by-case situation. But in general, we're open. But we just have a lot of questions on how that would be negotiated and so forth like that. Or the two sessions, the morning session and the afternoon session. But we're open to looking at that in general. Yes. And secondly, regarding vouchers, the Catholic schools have always nationwide always been supportive of a voucher system where the government, has a voucher to provide the student or the family, and the family chooses the school that they want to go to. So in general, the Catholic schools are open to that possibility as well. A new reality in the United States, the charter schools, being able to participate. And I understand that there's at least one Catholic school on Guam who's very much interested in that. So it's a little bit more iffy for me, but I know one principal is interested in that. One Catholic school principal. That's what I could offer. But if you have any questions, I'll be happy to answer.
Thank you, and I'll open up to anyone who may wish to delve into this further.
Hello. Okay, I'm looking at the senators over here. We were discussing the charter schools. But the charter schools, we've not asked for an increase, and we've worked within our means, and we've been very blessed. With that said, because of the situation, and because I'm very big on the cap, and this is Senator Burnett, we're very big on the cap because it's a learning environment. We like to keep it very minimal. It works for the charter schools, for all of our charter schools. But because this seems to be a situation, I'm going to let you know now, they have a budget hearing tomorrow, is that we already have SEPA, for example, and I learned. that the waiting list from the public school want to transfer these students, but because we are in a cap, you know, that's where I'm gonna go tomorrow and plead that we may have to make this temporary. Like they said, it's not a permanent thing, but that would work as long as we are given the 7.5 and that we increase the cap maybe for this school year and see where that goes, because that's an option to go with. And we've already have, just from iLearn, 30 students on the waiting list that came from DOE that want to transfer in. And I did share with Mrs. Michihara that I'm going to go ahead and approve it at the council, and I will go before the legislature because of the situation. We have a long waiting list all across from the Guam Academy Charter Schools, from first grade to 12th. Then we have SIPA, iLearn, and Career Tech. And so with all the schools, we have a long waiting list just in the last month. So I just want to give heads up that that's an option for the schools, the students of DOE to come to. And, but again, it's appropriated by the legislature. And so that's something that we may look at. And I'm open to the option of vouchers as well. I think it's a great idea. And our facilities are big enough. Okay, and our staff at all the charter schools are very proactive. I like to say that they're very positive, but again, it goes back to our cap and our requirement for the budget and appropriation for this fiscal school year.
If I may inquire, where are you at in terms of absorbing? Do you have a student figure? How many you could absorb right now?
Yes, we could for each of our facilities. Right now, we can go up to 100, 150. We really can do that.
Is that a total figure or?
A total figure per charter school.
There's 3 charter schools?
There are 4 charter schools.
So that would be 100 times 4?
Correct.
And if I may ask, Reverend, do you know if San Vicente is available to be leased by the government?
San Vicente is available, but it is on the market for sale.
Okay,
Yeah, so I don't know
but you would have discretion on, if I may inquire, would you have discretion on entering into a lease with the government for a certain amount of time, even though it's on the market?
I think we can be open to it, but that's a very new concept. I'd have to bring it back.
Yeah, and I'm not here to put the pressure on anyone, and I expect that our conversations will continue after we conclude this gathering.
It would have a lot to do with the time, how long you would want to consider this. We are looking to sell it as soon as possible.
Thank you. Interested in the government buying?
That's a possibility.
What is the capacity, if you happen to know?
I talked to one teacher and they said that at one time there was as many as 700 students there, but I think more realistic is maybe 600 to 650.
Thank you. If I may ask St. John's, Ms. Lund?
I'm here to listen right now because this is all new concepts to me and what you're trying to do and trying to help. And we're open to listen and see how we can help. Well, that helps me right now. We have 4 classrooms. I think there's only 2 classrooms, 2 or 3 classrooms that we have a couple of seats in, but otherwise we're at full capacity. And we don't have room on campus to have other buildings right now. So I'm just here to listen and see how I can help.
And I thank you for that. Which side, Sean?
Hello, hi everyone. Okay, so first of all, thank you for allowing me to be here. I just want to recognize one of my students from St. Paul, Melchor Cristobal. He's interning here. So it was nice to see him at the entrance just greeting me. I was like, what are you doing here? You're here in the AG facility. Oh my God. So he's interning, but anyway, yeah. So I just wanted to, so first of all, I guess we're here for solutions. We go back to the quote, like it takes a village to raise a child, right? So I would first of all just get parent involvement, period. All the clubs and organizations, NEHS, NJHS, NHS, like that's a part of their character pillars is service. And also church organizations, no matter what religious belief. Within the village, there are so many churches that surround schools. And then, we would be, I want to say St. Paul would not be the last resort, but we would be open to helping however way you would like us to help. I think we would look at our numbers first because we want to make sure we cater to our students, our community, and then look at per grade level. If there's only 10 students in kindergarten, then give us 10 of your public school students for kindergarten, I guess by district, right? So we can keep it all under control, and then have the vouchers. And also this would be a good opportunity for students who are less fortunate to attend a private school. And I mean, we're sitting here, we're talking about we're so blessed, and then now it's time to, I don't know, give of our time and also give of our facility and a welcome with open doors. So that's how I feel like I have to go back to my admin and talk to them about it, but I think we want to reach capacity, right? So, and we want to help.
And I know our team here, and I have Deputy Frank Kandit and Chief Deputy Joe Guthrie, and you wanted to also throw out to the private sector what the DOE is doing for the morning afternoon type session. You know, worst case scenario, how can we help the kids at least have some education during a regular school year? So we were, as DOE has done, they break it into a morning session and afternoon session. I think JFK is looking at doing that with Simon Sanchez. But kind of throwing it out there for discussion. But again, this is an open session, so if anybody wishes to interject and ask questions of one another, please.
Thanks so much. I want to pull the hand right away. I think on this idea of farming out DOE schools. When we send them to a Catholic school or to a charter school, when they remain DOE students.
Yes, I would say, and for our purposes,
those schools certified. I don't think they all are.
They would have to be. I think under our education system, they're required to be.
No, they're not.
The charter schools do not have to be certified, but our statistics and our data show that they do well and they succeed.
If I may, well, you know, for my, I don't profess to be an educator here, but usually when you apply to a university, you have to have a certain amount of credits that they will accept. So I would, and you guys can correct me if I'm wrong, are there schools on Guam where you apply to a mainland university and we're not accepting credit for your school or a school on Guam?
If you're not accredited, if you're not accredited, you can't go to a California university.
Okay.
It has to be Western Association Schools and College accreditation to be able to go to California.
So a charter school might have a problem.
May.
All of our charter schools are accredited by law. We are accredited. I'm saying that not all of our teachers are certified. We have certified teachers. We have master's degree. We have bachelor's degree. They're not all certified if they do at DOE because it's required or mandated. But we do have, and I will repeat, certified teachers and school administrators. A lot of them came from the DOE system. A lot of them retired and now are at the charter schools. Our teachers, each individual teacher, some of them are going to school to pursue their education, to become certified. There's many of that. And, but for the most part, not each and every teacher is a certified teacher.
Okay, so that's just the first concern that came to mind right off the top of my head. Are they certified teachers? Because we're trying to avoid those categories this a lot. And so there may be other issues in the Adequate Education Act that may also rise when we move students out of DOE facilities. So I'm passionate about that. Now, I started out as a teacher. By the way, my name is Robert Faust. I'm a field representative for the Guam Federation of Teachers. I am here on behalf of the president. So just get back to it. Now, I started out my career as a teacher, and there were 3 reasons why I became a teacher. And those 3 reasons were June, July, and August. Why did I want to be a teacher? Well, I was in Colorado. Those are the only warm months. Yeah, June, July, and August, honestly, that. And now I have to change it. And I have to say May, June, and July, because teachers are expected to start work on August 4th. Now, this is something we need to look at. And here's an opportunity. Recent teachers start on August 4th, and next year it'll be August 3. And on a leap year, it's going to jump 2 days forward. Because there are 26 pay periods, 364 days in the payroll calendar. But there are 365 days in the calendar year. So to ensure there's no lapse in pay, teachers start their school year 1 day earlier each year and 2 days earlier on leap year. This causes the school to start earlier and earlier each year. Now, you other employees don't sit back and relax because they're doing it to you too. You're getting 360, your payroll is divided by 264, and you're earning 365 days. At some point, somebody looks at this, they might come back and say at your retirement, you've got a year too much income. So be aware. But the point is, here, there's an opportunity. We have in the past had to go to war, basically, to adjust the calendar, where the board wanted to furlough teachers and push the calendar back. And even at the legislature, I was told it's the union's fault that we can't do that now. But that's not true, we can.
Right, and Mr. Cost, for purposes of our discussion here, we're in a situation that the school year is going to be forced to be pushed back because of the school facilities. So we wanted to focus on what would be available. And your initial question was, are these kids going to be part of the private schools that have been the voucher, or are they going to be part of the still DOE? I think that would be coming out of the legislature if it was authorized on the character. But I would envision it's like contracting the school to provide for the student, paying them the money, and they would be following their curriculum, which John, I'm sorry. Reverend.
Not a lawyer, of course, and I hate to be contrary to what you're saying, but I believe if the money, the voucher is given to the parents, and the parent chooses where they want to apply that voucher, they would enter into a contract, for example, with Catholic school as a parent. So we have we enter into a contract with the parent.
That is correct.
And we would consider them a private school student on our part.
Right, and I think that's how we discussed at the AG's office with my team, that basically we're contracting with the school. Apparently, the government would provide that opportunity, the funding. With the voucher, it would be taken over to the private school, then the private school would receive the money from the government. And that's, I think, how they do it in the States as well.
We would not be able to comply, at least this year, without support with the requirement, if there is a requirement, to have all certified teachers. We are very much like the charter schools, what the cities.
And very good. And this is what the senators would need to hear, because they can provide for these things and whatever authorization we decide to do that. Thank you. Thank you for clarifying that.
Mr. Bond, if I may clarify,
Yes,
is it the government's intention to furlough teachers?
I have not heard of any indication. In fact, I think that we need to get the teachers.
We're going to push a calendar back a year. What do you do with the teachers?
Well, let's put it this way. I think that's a conversation between the union and DOE at this time. I wanted to focus upon what options would be available between government of Guam and the schools for purposes of the children.
And I wanted to offer a summary of I think this one's trying to change.
Yes.
The school year is expected to start on August 4th, the rate report. There are some schools, we know that that's not going to happen, particularly those based in the school. If the calendar were to be pushed back into late August, maybe August 23rd, somewhere around in there, that would give DOE more time, possibly getting phase 1 and phase 2 schools together, getting as much as 2/3 of the students in school on time at the start of the school year. All we have to do is adjust the school calendar to make it happen. One simple exercise. But that means not furloughing teachers. It means starting the school year out with vacation days for teachers, summer vacation days. And they will have 2 more weeks of summer vacation before school starts. All we have to do. It's a very easy thing. There's no money involved. We're different from where we are now. And that buys us, not just 2 weeks till school starts or 22 days, but it buys us, at least another 2 weeks, maybe 3 weeks. I think that would be very, very helpful. I know it's not an end-all solution, but it's a start. I also like some of the ideas that heard the legislature about getting other government agencies to step in during that period of time and help work with DOE to help keep those schools done. That's not happening right now, but I think if we have that kind of help, maybe we could do them better.
Okay, very good. Thank you. Mr.
Yes, thank you. I gotta get up. I can't sit down very long, I got this problem. Folks, I've been teaching since 1976 with the Department of Education. I've never, ever seen a day like this. Every student should start August 9th, right, students? You want to go back to school, right? August 9th? I understand about Simon Sanchez. I understand about OSHE. Those are crises. That's why the double sessions had to happen. In 1976, I started a program, Teachers Coming to Dinner program. I would go to people's houses, my students, on Friday nights, eat dinner with them. I never went inside the house. I was in a carport or underneath a canopy. It is completely inappropriate to go into people's houses on Guam. And that's what online education is all about. You go in the house, you're in these children's bedrooms. I'm telling grandmothers, could you please wipe that child's face, for goodness sakes? You know, it's completely inappropriate culturally. So you're completely right about that, sir. Now, we can handle a smooth job an additional 350 students. We're only doing Tuesdays and Thursdays and Saturday morning now. We can do Mondays and Wednesdays and also Saturday afternoons. Now we do about 350 a year, so we could double that easy enough. But let's start the schools and have all the students go on August 9th and work around that and have public health come in and have our unbelievable public works folks. And we do have to bring in some of the Guam National Guard, bring them in to do heavy duty stuff. Get the playgrounds fixed up. The playgrounds have never been fixed up. They're in complete disrepair. And these elementary school kids need that large motor exercise. They have to get out on the playground. And now they're not. It's a really sad state of affairs, but that can be done with public works. They can come in and change all of this and make these repairs. But I've never seen in all I'm doing 45, 46 years with the Department of Education. And this is the first time I've ever seen it where all the students don't go to school on the day they're supposed to go to school. And so let's not make anything, what I call this synthetic. We made this thing up. And it's a shame that we come to this because our schools are in disrepair. Fix them while the students are there. Very simple. It can happen. If you got to move some students around with on that facility, move them around. But there's no reason for us to go through what we're going through now. And supporting our new superintendent. Thank you, sir, for coming back to Guam, by the way, into this craziness that you're here. And then Mary Okada, what she's been able to say, it's all right on. But again, a school job can do about 350 extra if it comes to that. But let's go into the schools. Let's go back and open up and get the buses running and take these schools back. These are the people I want to ask. Am I correct about this? You're the students, right? Your high school students, you want to go back August 9th with all your friends and get back into the situation that we're looking forward to? Absolutely. That's what we do at the school job. We ask the students, what do you think? What do you want to do? We want to go back. We want to be there. August 9th, there's no reason for us not to be there. For us as adults, talking about the way we're talking is crazy. The students want to go back, so let's put them on the buses and take them back, right, Mr. Sanchez? Yeah, he did. Okay, good. But yeah, no, it's real. So let's keep our let's not think about keeping fingers crossed. Let's not do anything else. But let's send a message. Our office, our memo of understanding from this group to the governor that full speed ahead. We're behind her. Let's get this opened up. And let's do everything we can with our people over at our Board of Education and bring in the parents. Whatever happened to the parents coming in on the weekends? By golly, what we used to, I think Governor Badagio started that, right? When we do our Saturdays and our Sundays, where we go out and take care of our community. But there's no reason in the world why we shouldn't do this, but it's something that I feel very strongly for. And I think we have that support, right, Dan? That's what. Okay, all right, that's where our school job's coming from.
Thank you, Mr.
Okay, thank you, sir.
I will say this, I know the comments that were made about the inspections. We have to distinguish between inspections that are critical to the health and safety and cosmetic type of inspections. And I'm sure that the senators might be looking at that, or that might be in the code, but the merit system, as long as it doesn't fundamentally endanger the safety of the students, the teachers, the visitors to the school, I'm all for it. The example was somebody marked up the desk. That shouldn't stop a school from going on. Even the amount of lighting in it, you know, it's just, there's certain, I'm sure there's certain standards, again, I'm not an expert in the, these type of things, but we need to distinguish between what is critical to the safety and that which is cosmetic or not critical to the safety of individuals. Ms. Perez or Mr. Gutierrez, would you like to comment?
Thank you, Randy.
You're welcome.
It makes you all appreciate that year. Well, it was your year, and I was also the year that I came on board as a board member, as a parent advocate, and I know many of you have heard me on the media barking about the facilities of the OE. This list really is, I'm confused of some of the schools that I've visited right after the time frame. And some has to do with like the air condition. I had a school the principal told me they didn't pass because there's no spring. You know, but the school has the window. So the other one is, I'm still confused. Because, for example, you know, DOE has to really question public health. Because like you say, the marker, the marker thing or whatever, I went to the schools after the cyclone in the northern. I don't know if anybody from DOE management went to the school in the northern. How could they close the school just because the issue of the aircon in the cafeteria? I think there's some misinformation coming up. When you talk about, yes, the law says certified teachers, we don't all have certified teachers in DOE. We have substitute. Sometimes they're substitute for the whole school year. So, you know, I want to thank all the private school. Thank you, St. Paul. My granddaughter became very successful. Then thank you for the jail. So you were there to make her an altar servant. My colleague here, who is a member of the Guam territory, Guam policy, education policy board, we never had this issue. We never had. Because we make sure people are whole accountable. And that's what Senator Speaker and Senator Barnett, when they say that the board has to go back to governing, because we were governing board, but now we're operation. When I say something, that's operation. I visited the school as a board member. And yes, my colleague, the chair, has joined me. My principal told me, and you know, the people are dealing their own life. When principal texts me, I was texted last week, school readiness, where are you? Should we get online, please? We fail our children. We fail our children. We were being blamed also as a board. I don't take that blame, but I did my part and they bring it to their attention. So I hear this, yes, there's voucher. And a lot of the school in the state, as a member of the National State Board, Western Director, a lot of schools are opening up for vouchers to give the parents a choice. I know with you, we might not like it, but then our budget will go down. But we offer our kids the best education, and it's our responsibility. I'll take the blame that I've been board member for a long time. I did my best, but it was falling in deaf ears, and that's why we selected the right person to lead us, and that's Dr. Swanson. Because we feel that it's something that is time, and I know, you know, he didn't give me his phone number because others are calling him at night. But Senator Pinaka said, Mrs. G will be right in front of your desk. It's just that we just started. But we're here to, you know, we really feel for our kids. I have a grant. that is on phase 2. His parents are working, his brothers and sisters are working, so that means I have to take him alone when I go to board meeting, because I have to babysit him. Because his school is phase 2. I'm going to that school to see why is it phase 2? I just don't understand public health. When I heard this morning, and I was listening to Mr. Bernard speaker, the oversight. Once they inspect a school and there's 14 demerits, they stop. Then they go to another school. That's ridiculous. And like their chair here, accreditation. They give you, this is how you improve. But if they're going to stop at 14 demerits, then go to another school and another school, and I still don't understand why it takes 7 to 10 days before they compile the report. I don't understand that. So not only as a board member, as a grandmother and a great grandmother of 3 public school students, I'm concerned. But with the leadership of Dr. Swanson, like you said, we're all in one crew, we're not, no passengers. But I thank the private school, the charter school, for coming to this table to hear what we're going through. And I know, because I met several parents over the weekend. I'm sorry, Mrs. Gutierrez, we're going to enroll our kids at the charter school, because you guys fail our kids. So the charter school, the cap, Speaker and Senator, please look at the cap. Open up the cap for the schools. Because we are going to lose public school students. Parents have no hope that we're going to be able to open our door for your kids, our kids on August 9. So I just wanted to share because I'm really confused of this. Just for an air, and a lot of this, with principal messaging me, Mrs. D, the problem is air conditioning. Air conditioning. Cafeteria. That's what they said, it's not safe for the kids to eat in a cafeteria that has no air conditioning. And I know Senator Barnett, so she has his kids go to the cafeteria to eat. That's what they're saying, that's why they put them 14 to their phase 2. I have a school that I heard last week, hey, I'm getting out of the dark green, I have to go to light, the yellow, because my school has been fixed, focused. So I really question this thing, AG, and all of you. I'm a person that's hard to believe, really what is, because I'm going out myself. I'll just look from the outside because we're gonna go into the campus. But Tina can be in the campus. Thank you for listening to me, but this is that person that's always barking to board meeting, and Dr. Farah knows, and Dr. McInch. That is because of the facility at our school. And it has fallen their ears. Thank you.
Yes, thank you. I'd like to add, maybe, public health, I know they have one, the inspectors, they have one criteria. I think the criteria for how you treat a restaurant and how you treat a school is different. And maybe their criteria, I don't know, maybe they should be flexible with regards to that. And so that's a big factor into that. I'd like to also mention with the charter schools, I want to stand corrected in regards to the increase. The Guam Academy Charter School can take in more than that because it's a big facility. And we can try to work with the capacity. I'm going to reiterate again, we'll go back to the school administrators for each of the 4 charter schools saying, Ms. Cepeda, we don't have the funds. And as you know, our teachers in the charter schools are not paid very well, but they do it for the love of the children because our priority is the children that we service. So with that said, if the legislature can go that route, we can work with DOE. And I like to say is that we're not taking away from DOE. Look at the children of Guam, you know, and they are given the best opportunity possible. And DOE, I have a sister that works for DOE. I was on the board, served on the board of DOE. I have a passion for the DOE children. I just think that it's overpopulated. I think the schools, the structures are very, very old, and time is creeping. And so with the situation and the timeline, the charter schools willing to work with that. I think our team at the charter schools, at each of the 4 charter schools, are very workable. They just want, you know, if we go with this route, and this should be an option, I think that that would be something that would be open to our doors. Just wanted to say that.
Thank you. I know from the AG's office, we were talking from full gambit from leasing space, like the UOG that was being set by the legislature. They have spaces where the teachers could be brought in with their books and just, you know, take care of the program that they have for the kids in UOG and those rooms around it, besides GCC as well. But it's just, everything is open, whether it's a school voucher, whether it's using your facility. Let me interject one thing that we also, among we lawyers, were talking about. You guys know what happened to the landfill. What happened was the federal government came in on this U.S. territory and says that government of Guam, you cannot run that landfill because it was a mess. And they literally took the whole function away from Department of Public Works and the territory of Guam, government of Guam. U.S. DOE and the government of Guam are facing the exact same situation here, that the U.S. Department of Education can come in and take away the function of running the schools. We already lost Dodea. If they came in and took away the entire infrastructure of Guam and says that you guys aren't providing your kids the education, therefore the federal government is going to come in and do it. They have the right under the Organic Act, or an instrumentality of a territorial status. That's the danger, by the way. Worst case scenario, and I'm hearing stuff that this is unprecedented in Guam's history. I haven't followed DOE politics long enough to understand how schools haven't opened up on time in the past. But as an attorney, I will say that we have, I think it was the Bordout landfill, what was the other one? There's another, they nationalized what other function? What, the solid waste? Behavioral health, right. They come in under DOC, they have the consent decree where we're still allowed to operate it, but you're operating it under an agreement. But like the landfill situation, they just stripped it from us. And then you have a receiver that's being paid top dollar off Guam that has no interest in ending the receivership. I think DOE has a receivership right now, I was told, on the management of federal funds. So, you know, that's the beginning. But remember that core function of education is subject to federal oversight, especially if we start getting lawsuits in the federal court. So this is what lawyers are looking at in terms of the danger of not being able to handle our own affairs. So, Mr. Superintendent, I didn't want to make you last, but I mean, would you have something you'd like to comment on?
Well, this is more fun than I ever hoped for. Just to make sure that everybody understands that my objective is to have all of our students in school face to face on day one. That's a pressure I've been putting on my team.
Yes.
And they've been really driving hard to make that happen. We have to work out some flexibility with the inspection process, because even if we had everybody in category 1, we still have this backlog of inspections. We're using the same criteria that the health department is to evaluate the school. But I do want to clear up the perception around the document that you have with the projected dates. What we're looking at is, regardless of the condition of the school, where are we and how long will it take to get that particular facility up to speed? And so the names on that list have moved around over the last several weeks as we've worked on this, because we've been able to employ more employees and contractors and aides from different government agencies and access funds and get procurement channels opened up so that we can move forward. And that pace is picking up, so it's gonna go even faster in the next couple of years. The other piece is one or two items on the list of things that the health department are looking at could be what's keeping a school on level 3 and not on level 1. For example, we have two campuses where the actual problem is the main sewer line from the building to the street. That's a big deal, because you can't, even if your restrooms are all in good condition, you can't use them. We have other campuses that have, for example, JFK, and we're still trying to figure this one out. The doors in all the classrooms were installed opposite of the federal building code when the building was built. So if you have a building that's in relatively good quality, but in terms of the National Fire Code, it fails. And it should. How that happened, I don't know. I'm on the building inspection business.
That's a private, that's a lease
contract school.
So those guys are gonna have to fix it themselves,
And that's the conversation we're having tomorrow. But because I was personally involved with the whole design and construction of the Anderson complex. I was going to be a guy on the ground to make that happen. So I was involved with construction meetings and all of it. So how we miss some details, and when I go look at our buildings, I see everything from JFK looks pretty good to down to where I have a daughter who teaches at UW, and I funded her classroom. So there's some big disparity. Equity is an issue in our system. We have to address that. But to get to look at this list, what we did to categorize them was saying, what level of maintenance and support does it take to solve the problems that are going to cause them to fail? So the ones in the top level are pretty superficial things that our folks, not even using our maintenance people, but our staff on the ground at the school could handle it if we got them the material. And so they've done a good job of that, and we think we're ready to go with that. The next level, the blue group or the phase 2 are folks that are going to need support from our maintenance people, our plumbers, electricians, pipe fitters, and they can fix whatever is going to be fixed. And because there are so many, and as I drive around the island, and this has not changed in the 25 years since I was first there. There are schools that are in great shape and schools that are in good forward. I've been for generations, and it's up to me to help them get it fixed. So some of them were in that group. So if we can get the hands on the job with our people that we own, with the resources that we can procure, they can do it. When we get into the level 3, phase 3, it's two things. One is the degree of work that has to be done. So we're looking at the dollar cost. So you're looking at needing a major renovation of some sort. For example, in Rohan Middle School, it needs to be gutted. I've been there. I looked at it. The plumbing, the electrical. It's, even if we get the superficial stuff fixed, it's in bad shape. And that's an old facility. So we're gonna have to make some decisions about, and there's in our history about, well, some facilities we might not even want to keep. But that's a process that we just spend quite a bit of time with, so that we.
And what do you do with the students? Because they're not,
Right.
time is not on our side as a government,
Right.
because, that's the problem we're facing. We don't have the time to be addressing certain things.
I do want to conclude with this part of it, to understand that our intent, should we have to use online learning, it should be short term, long enough to fix the problem. If we can't figure out how to, for example, if the kids in Rohan really can't go to double shift with some other middle school campus, if the distance and time is an issue, but you might have to do that. So we want to get everything open and then have it scheduled for inspection and pass the inspection. So if we can get some sort of agreement that lets us go ahead and open our level 1 school on time, we're mostly elementary. That's the bulk of our young population. then move the other ones forward, or if we delay the start of school for a little bit of time, and that's a negotiable amount, it certainly would have to be in session by Labor Day. That would give us more time to get more facilities to up and inspection. So that's the flexibility.
What Fred Nishihira has faced us with in the AG's office among our think tank here is that everything is too amorphous. We have no way to plan, no way to gauge, no way to understand how long, and that's why I was going by, you guys operate by quarters, I think, for the most part. If you still operate in quarters versus semesters, and using, you guys have a lot of money that can be shifted to renting a facility that might be open, pushing your teachers and just to lease the facility from a private partner out there. Put your people there. You guys have to identify how many elementary school students, how many middle school students, how many high school students. Right now from our office, we can't tell anything. We can't put a finger on anything because it's very amorphous. Nothing can be done with these type of information, but the students need to have that education. So that's why the legislature coming in and saying that there shall be a voucher program. Once you guys give the figure of schools like in phase 3, if everybody on phase 3 needs to get placed in the school, then the legislature could develop the voucher program, take the money, look at FEMA, look at the ARP, work with the governor, hopefully, to free up those funds. Mr. Swanson, that's the problem that we as an AG's office is facing, and we're trying to figure out with specificity what to do, who the kids are affected. That's why I had to ask Mr. Nishihira, how many students are there in the DOE system? And he said about 29,000, I believe. 26,000. Right, 26,000 and 39 schools. And that has already ruled out Simon Sanchez. They took that off the 40 list. So from a lawyer's point of view, and I see Dan Summerflick out there, and I know he's been for years talking about the adequate education requirements. At some point, they're going to wake us up and it's going to be in federal court. And we're just going to be kind of going, we've got spilled milk. We can't say anything because we don't know. The health certificate requirements, maybe it has to be looked at again. What public health, put a time frame on them, require that they do it within a certain amount of time, reject or accept, and then come back once the school says to do it, reinspection sort of thing, versus you guys seem to be at the whim of public health. It sounds like. And I got to tell you, I was classmates with Father Jeff. I was a graduate of St. John's on 6th grade, and we didn't have air conditions. So when I'm hearing about, well, St. John's had air conditioning, but nobody else in the Catholic in the classroom had air conditioning. So I'm concerned that if a school is not being allowed to open because they don't have an air condition, when we on Guam, the older ones grew up without any air conditions. I was concerned because they were making schools without any windows. They just had a glass plate there and you had no ability to open the windows. But this is a conversation for our senators to be having. I'm just hearing that public health isn't giving you certification. There's something that I don't understand yet in terms of what exactly is on their checklist, whether the merits is the proper way to do it, as opposed to you've got rodents in this school, you're going to get flunked because of it. Get rid of the rodents, mitigate that issue. But an air condition, when you have windows or a cafeteria, to me, and again, I'm not a senator, but as a legal, and the judges are going to be looking at this from a legal perspective, are they in compliance with the law? And can it go forward because the legislature says it can or cannot go forward? And I know the legislature has done certain amendments to the law. Requirements. Right. Right, and this is where if it's coming from the adequate public education, then amend the statute. It's not one of those situations where you're going to get bubonic plague that rats running around. You got fecal matter. And actually, I think lack of air conditioning creates disciplining kids. Wake up, So, but sir.
Hi, hello, thank you, A.G. William. Joe Sanchez, Deputy Superintendent for Curriculum Instructional Improvements. So just to shed some light on a few details that were talked about earlier. Number one is, it is our understanding from public health that we just can't open if they don't have an inspection. So as we noted earlier, that's definitely one of our challenges. But with regard to our projection to open, so independent of our readiness, what we're told is that we still won't be able to open it. They won't have enough time. They don't have enough inspectors to get those schools inspected. So that's one area that we're hoping if there's a way around it. I know Speaker Jelani mentioned something this morning that the recommendation was go with our self-inspect because we have, I mean, I know that's kind of a lower standard, right? Because you have inspectors in the school. We were trained by public health. So public health trained everybody as part of that, of the new guideline, how to use the same criteria that they're using. And that's what was actually used the last couple of years to actually maintain the school.
But I guess the problem is there's that certification requirement. And without that health certificate, without that sanitary permit, from a legal point of view, I'd be concerned because then a parent coming in and saying, what guidelines are you using, that sort of thing. And that's, because once we get to the point that we require a certification, whether it's a sanitary permit, then the question is, what is leading up to that sanitary permit? And is there something legislature can do to mandate that public health shall do certain things? Are there other people in this community that can do inspections, or is it only public health?
We believe that there might be others because when we met with the executive, I wasn't there, but I know we met with the Lieutenant Governor and others, and they said that they were going to pull similar inspectors from other agencies. So I don't know if there's inspectors from other agencies that have the same qualifications, same training that can fulfill that function, but they did say that they were going to look into it. But if that's not an option, you know, the other option we believe existent law is the variances, and we've spoken about that with Senator Barnett here, that there's 6 major categories that are 6 demerits. And that's one of the reasons why JFK didn't pass. Aside from the doors, ventilation in one area of the school was not functioning. Well, that was an area of the school that you can argue as well as that going to be a health and safety issue, not necessarily. And there were a couple of classrooms where the air conditioning wouldn't work. And when you add those 6 demerits up, they include mechanical ventilation, room temperature, which is ACs, lighting. So I just learned a lot about lighting recently because of this, but I guess these are diffusers to keep the light not kind of direct.
You know, right? Those are the type of questions that the senator, the chairperson of education, should really, with the public health in the legislature, would be reviewing. And this is why we're here today, because I see it as an AG that I'm wondering whether or not some of these inspections are just unnecessary, that you would shut down a school and prevent the education from occurring. And the speaker showed me the section that says air conditioning in it. And, you know, you're talking about ventilation, stuff like that. But unless the kid's going to pass out, you know what I mean? It's got to be a reasonableness in it. And the public and health inspectors have to know what they need to do to give you a sanitary permit, even a conditional permit, because I know they give those sorts of things. But what would qualify for conditional? Does it need to be relooked at? We're really in a triage situation right now without understanding it. So
Yeah, I think maybe we're confusing some issues. So we have this adequate public education. This is where it requires that your teachers are going to be certified, that you're going to have certified counselors, all of those things, that you're going to have air conditioner, ventilation up to no higher than 78 degrees, and some things. And then we have another law that is the sanitary rules. Those rules were on hold for 4 years. This is the thing. And the law that was passed implemented the new sanitary rules that have been put off for 4 years. And that's what public health is following. I don't think public health is being random or whimsical or really putting DOE at their whim at all. I think they're going all out trying to help. But they put it on the table on day one when we talked about it, that they, with the limited staff, without help from DOA to hire more people, which they have funds for, and they just needed hiring to be done at DOA, that without that, they're going to be crunched for time. And we're seeing that now. And we heard in February, they were going to try to resolve this, right? The shortage of inspectors. And one of the ideas we heard was that they were going to try, since they're trying to hire, they would have to train them, right? So I believe, I'm guessing that they would be able to train other certified inspectors, such as building inspectors and other fire inspectors, and perhaps environmental inspectors, to also learn the DOE, the sanitary rules for schools criteria, and implement that if that's necessary. Problem is, if that we haven't seen, and that I think is a higher than the Vision of Environmental Health call right there that requires, I think, the governor's intervention to allow these other agencies to participate and cooperate and be detailed or however else that works legally. And that's the issue. And I think this waiving of criteria, they have a huge, I think, provision in the law that allows for variances. And so this is what DOE is trying to avail of, and widely. So I think it's a great solution. And they told us this morning that they have 140 applications for variances in the schools. This is where public health gets to say, okay, that wing, you're going to cordon it off and you're not going to use it. Okay, then we will certify the rest of the school. It's good. But, they're going to have to go through each of those one by one, which is what they've been doing according to the testimony. And so I don't think it's a whim. It's so clearly a shortage of those particular people at public health who can do this. And public health has been very honest and forthright with us that that was going to be their issue. Not that they didn't want to help you or that they're not trying their best to do that. I think it's bigger than that one division. And that's where we've been trying to get the entire government to cooperate and participate. But some of that is executive branch function. So I still think hopefully this meeting will push that a little bit. But that's so to me, this list that they have, I mean, they also have variances. So I just feel like it's not a whim. And if we're going to call it a whim, then we should not require sanitary guidelines. Those are rules and regs that have been approved, and we can go individually and waive some of those by law. But there was no testimony when those were being implemented that any of those we didn't want in our schools. That's the other thing. You tell me which ones you want us to waive, right? You want to waive the fire code? You want to waive that's what I'm saying, It's that you want to waive I don't want to go there. I'm going to go with the science of the sanitary rules, unless you can come up with specifics. But I'm all for the variances. I'm all for helping public health to get those additional inspectors and additional people to get through those variances.
We bring in the retirees again.
And just to clarify with the variances are not asked to waive. It's just that we have actions that are going to be addressing those. For example, the ACs, we have an AC contract that's coming up. AC fountains, we're purchasing the filters necessary to keep them running. One more example, the restrooms are part of our big capital improvement effort. So the variances, we're trying to make note of the things that we are addressing.
Thank you. That was the intent of the variances, and then I feel like we as a body, we have tried to do our best to enable and empower GDUE to be able to meet these mandates, but it was with the thinking that we would be able to avail of this whole of government approach that we were told about back in February. And I'm just hoping that some of the executive branches is maybe watching this, they're not here, and see that little note about all public officials in the executive branch are obligated, right? Because we had this conversation back in February about the deputizing of different regulatory type personnel, Guam EPA, building inspectors, because they're kind of similar disciplines to these public health inspectors. And that was just the last we heard of it. And that was February. And now we're in this position where, again, as a body, I felt like the variance was a great way. And all you have to do is show a good faith effort that you're trying to correct deficiencies. And so to us, that's a huge component in being able to open schools, because, for example, something like the roofing GW, you put out to bid, award the contract. I believe in the intent of the law is that you'd be able to get a variance so that you can pass that inspection. And so, again, we're really, to me, the key component that we're missing, and I'm encouraged by just assemblage of, great people and minds that are here today, but we really do need that assistance from the executive branch and to be able to really pull us off. I believe that we can do it, and I'm also encouraged that we're now softening a little bit on the idea of having to open on August 9th. I agree. I think if we push it back, I talked to principals today whose schools are in phase 2, but they believe they can be ready and pass an inspection by Labor Day. And so if we can somehow bring that idea about deputizing different types of inspectors so that we can get more than one school a week inspected, and then come Labor Day, maybe double the number of schools that are available in your inventory so that we can preserve face-to-face learning as the main option. I don't know, I feel optimistic, but again, it's key on that cooperation from the executive branch relative to the discussions that were had back in February. That and I've talked to Deputy Superintendent Erica Cruz, and there's been no forward movement on this. And I'm encouraged that Governor written the Attorney General letter and committed in the release that she was going to work feverishly with the Department of Public Health to assist GEOE in being able to open as many schools as we can again to preserve face-to-face learning. So, you know, that release and that letter came out, I believe, on a Sunday, and it's Tuesday, right? And so hopefully we'll see some traction and some change in the information so that, again, we can get as many schools open as possible. Because I mean, we passed this law unanimously because our students and our faculty and staff, I mean, it's very basic. I don't feel like I need to explain it to anybody here, but we deserve to have our kids go to school and facilities that meet just the basic safety and sanitation guidelines. And, you know, I have 2 children who are attending a phase 3 school, and I had the conversation with them that this, whatever's coming, and you're right, it is so amorphous that we don't know. And I think information is really going to change. Like I said, within the next week, we could be looking at more schools in the phase 1 category. But I explained to them that this little bit of short-term pain that we have to endure, this difficulty, this challenging time is really for the sake of the long-term goal that I know we all want. Everybody here in this room just wants that standard that we have not had, to hold that standard and to keep it there, just for the good of the people and the students of the public school system.
But may I throw it on the table for everybody that as you guys are considering this, that you also consider a drop dead date, that maybe the superintendent, that if you can't get the results that you want under this, and if you rather quick, that we start exploring these other alternatives, finding a different facility, getting the school voucher system, using the charter schools, because at some point, you know, working at the table, if you're not getting the cooperation and certifications that you need, and I agree with the speaker, they were there for a reason, they worked before. The fact that we're trying to get around them now is the first red flag. Yeah, I see our Guam Legal Services Director out there, Dan Summerfly. Dan.
A couple comments. And Fred pointed this out already. As usual, Brad is bossing me around. I think that the discussion needs to focus on 2 areas. And the first area is, what does federal law require? And as Mr. Hare put up on the board for us all right at the beginning, 180 days of school. So how are we going to get 180 days of school in before the start of the next school year? And looking at the materials from the legislative session, tier 3 items do not automatically mean the school can open. This means, and then it goes on to say, this means if the school is closed for tier 3 matters, then it will be a year or more before returning to their school. So if that's number 1, we have 180 days. We have to provide that. There's no gray area. At the same time, again, I'm just looking at federal law right now. We have children that are receiving special education. They already didn't receive extended school years, and maybe the typhoon is an excuse for that. But what happens when the school year starts? And they're not receiving a free and appropriate education because they go to a tier 3 school. To me, these are no-brainers. If you want to keep the feds out of your house, you satisfy the federal requirements. And one is How are we gonna provide an education if this is our roadmap to children who are in special education? That's where we have federal mandates. We have the Organic Act that says 180 days. Then we have the special ed laws that say free and appropriate education. And I would opine to you, if you open one school and then you have all the other schools with all the other kids in special ed not being provided a free and appropriate education, you're in danger. You know, the adequate education law, to me, is 101. You have certified teachers. Why wouldn't you have certified teachers? This is actually one of the issues I had with the charter school. They're public schools, but they don't have to have certified teachers? That doesn't make sense. If they're public schools, why would you have one school that's run by DOE that has to have all certified teachers, but another school run by a charter school, which is also a public school, not being required to have certified teachers? And this is kind of the downside I see with some of the plan right now. If it's our mantra that our teachers that teach our children should be certified, then how can we even consider using any place that doesn't use certified teachers?
And Dan, I agree with you on that. The problem is that we're in like a triage right now. So
I understand that, and that's why I'm kind of laying out.
No, and I get you 100% on it, and I think that's it's well said. I've been there in those court hearings where you advocated for this. Those special ed that he just pointed out, that is going to be the big red flag that the federal court's going to get involved with. Because you know they have fiduciary, they have trustees, basically guardians that are going to be advocating for them in the school system. Correct me if I'm wrong, Dan. Every school has a special ed program. Public schools.
Every public school should have a special ed program.
Basically, we're looking at phase 1, 2, and 3 with the mixing of these special ed students in them. Is that
right? No, correct.
No. So,
and that's why I bring this up, because we're now not talking something our legislature has control over. We're talking about if you can't provide special ed, just like Hawaii, you're going to go into receivership.
This is what the danger of what our attorneys were worried about here, and stuff like this isn't going to fly before the court. You know, they're going to look at this, and they're going to. I'm sorry, no disrespect to you, Mr. Swanson. It's just without a plan in place, and the court, because that's what the court's going to do. They're going to impose a plan, as the speaker was mentioning, when we couldn't provide the safety at DOC. They came in and they told us what the plan was going to be, otherwise going to take it away. So I really think that we need to have heart-to-heart discussions, and including maybe yourself, Dan, with Fred Nishihira, the superintendent, the contact with the private schools to understand the capacity of what's out there, because we can't provide everything. It's clear. Even in this year, we can't provide everything that you're saying. There's no certified teachers in some of these schools. The fact that they are accredited, I think the positive thing, at least we're in an accredited institutions on Guam. We're not where we need to be, but we're so far below where we have to be to start the school year. Like you said, 180 days. And we've seen it in the past where you start going into Christmas vacation, Easter, and hoping that you're going to be able to make it up. But again, with the weather and everything that can happen here, these are the people that are going to be able to resolve it with our senators, with the administrators at DOE. I think it's an important conversation. I don't know what else to say about this. We need to have
one other point, if I can, while I'm at the floor, I'm going to take advantage of it. Online learning sucks. And I would remind you all that I don't have internet. How many other people don't have internet?
Especially now.
My son bought a Wi-Fi. It still does. We still don't have internet.
Right.
So how are we going to provide an online learning experience for all these children, which really, in my mind's eye, 80, 90%? I mean, maybe if we raise our hands, who's got internet? You know,
right.
I don't think, does anyone have internet? And if that's the case, how do we conduct online learning? Do we have, what was the number, 42,000 Wi-Fis, MiFis, and 42,000 computers to hand out? You know, let's cut that in half. We have 20,000 MiFis that will allow children to log on. You know, I live on Nimitz Hill, MiFi means nothing. It doesn't work. It doesn't provide the continuity. At the same time, having lived with a teacher through online learning, he hated it. Why? Because if a child's in La La Land, how do you get their attention? It's
Right.
not like you can walk up to their desk. Let's go, let's go.
Send them to the principal's office.
You know, tap on the screen, you don't, and she also found that she had a couple students that she called the half-hour groups. They stayed online for 1.5 hours and precisely at 30 minutes logged off. How does that work? So if there's no other point you hear me on, please, please don't go back to online learning. You know, it's going to be a failure. It was a failure. And not because teachers didn't try. They did try very hard. I can say because I saw it. It's just a format that may work very good for children that are high functioning, very high functioning. For other children, it's a dead screen. So I appreciate giving me the floor. I appreciate that I was able to finish. Thank you very much.
Thank you, you're so pleasure. Sir?
Going to be hearing from a person that's been in the trenches of education since 1974. I was here on Guam when the IDEA state plan for Guam was put together. A colleague and myself were there, and we did it. I have traveled and taught throughout the United States and also including China.
Sir, if I may interject, what is your name?
Oh, I'm sorry. My name is Franklin Paris. I'm a teacher at JFK. I'm also a stakeholder. I have a son in defense school. Okay. Normally I listen when I come to these hearings, but the good Lord compels me to speak up. Mr. Summerfleck and I are no strangers to each other. Often we face students with special needs who are not being served. Sometimes we are collegial, sometimes we are adversarial, right, Mr.
I would agree, sir.
Yeah.
On all counts.
But we always come together for the good of that child. Now, the elephant in the room that we have not addressed is special education, because it is a highly litigious group of kids. And if you want to talk about law, right now, I've looked at all of the vacancies in the United States under LinkedIn, and there are a massive number of special education teachers that are leaving the profession. Why? Because of litigation. Now, I'm just worried that with this plan of 3 tiers, that you will be discriminating against those students with special needs who are not going to be provided an appropriate education. That is the fear that I have as a parent and as a teacher of students with special needs. That what will make or break this system is going to be special education, litigious, massive litigious occurrences within our system. And that is not a doom and gloom. That is a fact that we are facing right now. And so that is all I wanted to say.
Thank you, Mr. Curtis. If I may inquire with the private schools, do you guys even accommodate special ed?
That was my question I was going to ask. Is that are the charter schools and are the private schools prepared to address a parent with student with special needs within their facility?
Right. Father, if I may inquire, does the Catholic school system have anything set up for that?
Well, a very limited capacity, case by case parents, working with the parents, seeing what we can provide and the parents accepting what we can provide. But also the public school, the public schools also provide support to private schools to help. So they do offer, I think it's called equal access or something like that, for a student in private school can avail of public school special ed services.
And that's usually in a case by case basis.
Yes.
Okay, it's not capacities.
And you know, for the superintendent's type situation, you know, I agree with Mr. Paris, and I've seen it in my practice, the special ed litigation is very high. That the UOG, these facilities that you may be able to tap into, you may want to have a special category for the special ed, prioritize them. Not only because they're disadvantaged, but because of it's in all the schools. So you literally have to start to take tally of all these schools and start diverting these kids to either San Vicente, if you can get a hold of it, UOG facilities, and the field house has a lot of rooms around it. This is the type of stuff the government of Guam is facing, the taxpayers are facing.
I have often wondered, as to why we haven't thought about a magnet school, like that might be going against special ed, magnet school that addresses all these kids in an area and not necessarily discriminating for special
Well,
ed.
you had Brody Memorial originally. That was a special ed school. And given the problems that we're having right now, because we can't provide all the schools with these special ed,
Right.
that's why I'm saying, is it in the government's purview that they want to segregate these kids for this limited period of time, or 1 semester or 1 year school year until the schools can all be open again? I don't know.
I do recall when Chief Brody School was, they had it all where all the special needs children were attended. Then they decided to mainstream them and let them go into society and be to socialize with the other children. So that's why they did away with that, because of the federal mandate at the time.
Yeah, that was the least restrictive environment. And what happened was when they passed out of the least restrictive environment, it became the most restrictive environment.
Right, this is why I'm saying for a temporary period of time, that in order, because you're either going to have no education or you're going to have a facility set up just to help them not fall so far behind. That's right. And I think that as the government looks at this, and as a court might look at it, you want to make sure that maybe these are the types that are prioritized the kids for a limited period of time.
Yeah, I've sat through due process hearings and they are lengthy and they are expensive.
Right. Yeah.
I would opine that if you segregated all the special ed children to a single school, you're discriminating.
The problem is
What Mr. Harris brought up, and I would support wholeheartedly, is the concept of a magnet school.
I'm sorry, what is
A
that?
magnet school.
What is that?
It's a school that's set up and you have the right, you have the option of attending it. The inner city schools did it. They opened up brand new schools and they didn't have to force busing or anything like that, because what parent did want their kid to go to a hybrid school? And that would be, I think that would be acceptable, but that would be for both the special needs and for the regular ed students.
Well, it doesn't sound like we're on different ground there. That to have a magnet school, you're calling it?
Right.
To have a magnet school, it would be optional for the parents to send them there if they want, given the situation that DOE's in, that they can't guarantee to be and that's why I was talking about a quarter period, a semester period, just so that we don't have to lose the 180 days with the time that we have.
I think you could be creative and develop something, but it would take effort.
Right. Thank you.
I'll tell you that, Agent.
Cheers.
Yes, I hear about Dr. I always see Dr. Flex, and I enjoy when it comes to the meeting and where he's concerned, we advocate for students special needs. I have a grandson, and it's very deep in my heart. The problem is, and the chair and I are discussing with Dr. Swanson on special education. There's also a lack of teachers in the classroom, and they're not gonna like what I have to say at DOE, but we have special education teachers certified down the central office. And there's a school that for one whole school year, there was no special ed teacher other than a 1-to-1-8, and the regular teacher handled the students. So I brought this up to Dr. Swanson. These are teacher classification. They got their 20%. Our teacher educated pay. They need to be in the classroom, not a central office. Because our mission is to educate the kids, and that's the problem now. There's lack of special ed teachers. Because if you go down there, they're there. And Dr. Swanson will take care of that. But I'm sensitive to the students with special needs because I have one. I have one grandson. And I was told that when it was barking, that it fell to the crack. Well, I don't want that anymore. I don't want to hear that. And there are other kids that, and yes, the schools that I see here, they have, that are in phase 2, phase 3, they have students with special needs. Because I've been there, I've met the students. So we cannot separate those kids. They have to be all at the same time. I'm very concerned, and it is, it's a federal law.
Yes.
And
This is why those options are all on the table. Leasing, vouchers, special ed. It sounds like the public school system would be the best place to handle the special ed groups. But I mean, whether you have an open lease facility that you just move all the teachers into that facility, I'm sure GFT would be happy with that. But I mean, what are the options? What is the plan? What are we going to do from this day forward? We have an attorney that's dedicated full-time to DOE. So everybody having said something about this, and I appreciate the private school presence here. To have you be in communication with my deputy, Fred Ishihira, so that we can continue this conversation on, as the legislature, as the Department of Education gets closer to August 9th, and maybe we get better gauging on what's going to happen.
Well, we'll have better, this list changes every day.
Right.
So we'll keep you updated on that, but I'm going to take the suggestions that have also been offered here and say, okay, how can we flesh that out? I'm starting with the 180-day school year and see what I can do to create something that meets the legal requirements, meets the teaching and learning requirements, and stays within our negotiated agreement. So that's a little bit of a juggling act, but I'm beginning with a strong working relationship with our association, so we'll be able to get there. Everybody needs to understand that this listing was never intended to be the published position of it. It was an internal working document to figure out where the heck are we with each school, because it impacts all of them.
Right, and but this is the public process.
Yeah, I know.
Given the dates,
Yeah,
everybody
I
needs to
know.
know their kids, right? Because I'll just tell you what the rumor is. The rumor is that the ship is sinking and the kids are running from the ship, and the kids that are running are the teachers' kids. The teachers are seeing the ship sinking and they're running to the charter schools. They're looking at the private schools to get their kids out of a system that's going down. That's the danger. What I see here. And again, you just got the job, so congratulations. But it's so there's movement. That's why when Evangeline talks about the increased numbers, I think that there's an indication why the kids are trying to get out there, because every parent wants their kids to have the best education. We all want that. That's natural. As administrators and as the attorneys for the government, I have my staff. There's 2 over there that are listening. They're here at the meeting. They're going to help you however you need. For the senators, our offices prioritize this. We address some of the governor's issues on the recent bill 62-37 to hopefully open up the charter schools, the private school system. You guys need to tell me what you need from the Department of Education, as well as the private school. Stay in communication with us on what's the capacity. That's all I can say at this point. Us getting together again when it's appropriate, I'll leave that open to everybody that's here. And I know the senators are very active. So if anybody else would like to comment on it, I think that's where we're at right now.
Mr. White, I have a quick comment on how you can help. Back when we anticipated the military buildup, public health anticipated a problem with environmental inspection. Legislation was passed that would allow licensed attorneys to perform environmental inspection. And so that was intended for the buildup. But on your day off, maybe you got by the school or 2.
Well, I think the last one was trying went to the schools, you shut it down. So I think right now I
just throw it out there.
I don't know if you want an attorney.
Well, I think that might not be such a bad idea because it's not an attorney, but
other officials to go is that they actually see.
With all jest aside, I welcome Brett Nishihiro, coordinate with him, I'll go with him, and we'll bring some of our other attorneys that can get an idea of what you guys are talking about. Because all I'm hearing is stuff like rodents and stuff, and I'm just thinking bubonic plague and this and that. But when I hear scribbling on the desks and stuff, it's kind of scratching my head. But thank you, and I think we will take you up. I think Brett.
No, I thought it was a base in my career where I don't have to do this.
Never over.
But I'll say thank you very much from the private school and charter schools. You could email the same person, Gabby Ripple, or they would be video. Sorry, classrooms. We can coordinate with superintendent and responsible and more education. So, we have something very solid. I also did hear public health needed for some inspection. Senator, I'm not sure if you know, we'll get involved, but those are the couple of things I see legislative sessions that we can only go as fast as the inspections of basic code hearing, right? Even if every one of our schools ready, I refer to you, we say that public health just can't vote on that. So that's a staffing issue that maybe we'll be challenging and try to work with that.
But one of the things I need to, and I would hope maybe the superintendent can consider this, is to have a school by school basis, maybe the principal can be in charge to indicate a more exact idea of what's going to prevent them. And talking to inspectors is very important. What's going to prevent them from opening? How long it's going to take them to get that open? Because I'm sure there's probably a handful of things that they need. If they fix those things, then they're going to get the green light, the sanitary permit. So if the principals on 29 schools on the list can give that to you and Fred can work with you, I think it would help. And then even our civil division might be able to work with the whatever procurement, get out these contracts quickly from our office. If there's a contractor that needs to get his contract in hand to help the facility open, anything that we can do. But I think the principals, they may be the best people to know when their school can open.
And they've been heavily involved in this process all along. We'll continue to do. We have a session with them tomorrow to get closer.
Right, but that checklist, that idea that
we call it a punch list, and we don't develop for every school.
Yeah, that would be nice, and maybe Fred can give a copy
and share that.
Thank you.
There is a DOE standard operating procedure that is used every year before the school opens. Principals will check this. Because when I was visiting school before this last school year, I used that list. Okay, what would prevent you from opening? And it was the school readiness checklist, and it's SOP 1700 06. I think Brett may be at DOE at that time. But that's the checklist that the principals were using, and that was the checklist, like I said, when I was going around and even with the former acting superintendent Francis Santos, I asked me where to get that. I said, it's there, and it even tell you when do they, who should be responsible for this, the list of adult school agencies in the department. So it's there. It has not been rescinded. The only person that can rescind that is Dr. Clarkson, but it's still in place. So it's there.
And I'm not going to rescind.
Yeah.
It's a checklist.
I would copy it and give it to every principal, have a sign off on it and ask.
Yeah, they've been working from it. They are working from it.
Okay.
There's something that we can.
Yeah.
Is it weekly updates on the school readiness check?
And again, we'll get the latest update tomorrow. There's work going on literally 7 days.
It sounds like it's something that's conducive right now to a spreadsheet. Like this would be the first page and then 39 pages after that, so that each one can be looked at least by Fred from his attempting to give legal advice to your department. So I think it would probably be very helpful. And then that would help us gauge with the private school. So.
Okay, Joe, where did you go? Oh, I'm here. All right, well, that's one of the things that we'll be working on tomorrow to put together, and we can share that.
Thank you very much.
Well, we're in a situation where we're salaried and we can work as much as we want. Oh, yeah.
I would just like to.
Thank you, Father.
Ilinala Ipalawan, Sinyabula, Minaletnya, Agan Bravo, Itatataunya.
Yet cervical cancer continues to pose a constant risk to women today due to low awareness.
Cervical cancer pasiye masek lanmatan sa kontilokinyaki. Fingom somono, pap smear and HPV vaccination isa na kashing tilokinya.
Dapat ko rabil amla mugar. Ego mga laklangar rabil. Nagtamarera dan mura usong ala. Yang raw guru la. Ramak nitalak ta. Rektel o maralir.
Ang mga babaeng may edad 21 pataas ay kailangang magpapaptest kada 3 taon.
Sa dati na sontartua, lari sa kwano, anana na token sila ng HPV.
Ewa fesin, todo kuwan foundation. Ato geriawak na test, may oposud, ewa semwet HPV. Eri filifit, iya patufit singeriare pagi. Ekari ni sakawar dari tentu burut nanabut may patsakurel fefil medicine. Kirisam.
Tampatilin cervical cancer arangan prevent na från avfikachusarum movinial mahabugun kotafulaika cervical cancer.
Ara ko min matan fokokos.
Be a well woman.
Mga pakla ba dingiyo?
Tufna kada pinipin ang raiwege da health rodai.
Piata li kailangan.
Dangin Megat Itatal Tanya.
Maging malusog po tayong mga kababaihan.
Kits vefis si puede petiveteresit resawal gerisits puede papatsakut.
Take the first step to becoming a well woman and call Todu Guam Clinic today at 671-649-TODU to schedule an appointment.